Hi, my name is Caleb Mulvena. I'm co-founder and creative director at Mapos, and I'm here with Design Milk for DMTV Milkshake. Mapos Architects is a design-focused architecture firm. We do everything from branding and furniture design all the way up to master planning and some of our own development work, focused mainly on the Catskills and the Hudson Valley. So I'm going to answer a bunch of questions that have been provided by Design Milk in my handy dandy Michael Jackson vessel, which normally I drink coffee out of, but today I'm going to answer questions out of. And here we go. What physical space, such as a room, a church, a museum, a barn, a natural spot, has filled you with the most joy? I would say nothing beats nature or natural spots. Nothing compares to being in Yosemite Valley, or compares to standing on our deck where I used to live in Aspen and looking out at the Maroon Bells and Independence Pass at the same time. Those are always sources for inspiration for me and everybody here at Mapos. We're very reverent and very focused on nature. Some buildings that I also have resonated and filled me with great joy in the past. Val's Spa in Switzerland by Peter Zumthor is an incredible space. And I think also La Tourette by Corbusier is also a space that filled me with great joy. The minimalism of the space, the expansion and contraction, the rawness of the materials and the use of color, I thought really helped inspire me to be an architect. All right, question number 2. You said that building a treehouse for your kids checked the box on a life's list of goals. Are there other architecture-related goals on that list? Designing my own home, for sure. And I'm going to need one in the mountains, one on the beach, and one in the city. So it's going to require a lot of financial backing, which I haven't gotten yet on that. And I'd say another one is starting my own furniture line. I did start out as a cabinet maker. My father was a cabinet maker. I have a special affinity for furniture and furniture design. We do a lot of it here at Mapos. So eventually when I settle down and we have time, we are going to do that. But Vitra, you know where to find me. You've discussed reframing the scaffolding in the Innisfree store, not as an obstacle to beauty, but as a feature of it. Can you share another example of reframing an element like that, showcasing it instead of hiding it? I'd say we do that a lot here at Mapos, where we're really taking something that might be considered ugly or unsightly and really uncovering it and celebrating it. One example is the Caudalie headquarters here in New York. The brand is expressed in kind of beautiful natural materials, very light, actually quite feminine. And to bring that concept into a space in New York, we actually did a lot of demos, stripped the interior space down to the bones of the building, exposed raw brick, pretty rough terracotta, steel, an uneven concrete floor. And rather than recovering that up, we made that a feature of the space and really celebrated the juxtaposition of those very light, delicate, brand-related items and the rawness of the space itself. And it becomes a very successful juxtaposition. And each one kind of highlights the other in their differences. Okay. What is the predominant tension in your professional life? Probably the most predominant tension in my professional life is finding the space to focus on design. Probably a lot of you listening to this can relate to that, but running a business with employees and vendors and clients, it's easy to get lost in that side of it and forget about design. So making time and space for that is extremely important, but is always a point of tension. Can you give me an example of a thorny problem which was solved by encountering another architect, artist, or designer's work? This is another way of asking, how do you get inspired? 2 words, Donald Judd. He's the best. As an artist, I think a lot of architects appreciate his work, his perfect use of materials and proportion and color all going together and usually reacting to the space it's in. And actually, as a designer as well, some people may be familiar with his furniture work or his work in Marfa, where there actually is design involved, and he's kind of taken the artist's hat off a little bit. Has always been a great point of inspiration for me. I don't run into many thorny problems, by the way. What space that you've designed best exemplifies your aesthetic? We like to think of ourselves as designers focused on process and less aesthetic. And that's an important distinction here. So, however, on a personal level, aesthetically speaking, I think the Peconic house probably most closely reflects my own personal taste. It's actually very simple, very site specific, and actually reacts to the site. It's not all about the object of the architecture of the building, but it's about the interplay between the building and the site. It's also modern, but warm at the same time, highly textured and all natural materials. And that's what I'm all about. You founded Mapos 13 years ago. What do you know now, creatively speaking, that you didn't know in January 2008? In some ways, I feel like I know less now. And every day I learn something new. I guess one thing I could definitely say with certainty after running a firm for 13 years is that behind every great project is a great client. Their commitment to the concept, their commitment to overcome any obstacles to realize that vision, and their commitment to Mapos as designers and architects. Clients that really commit to us and that project in that way usually ends up in a great project. And I think a lot of designers and architects would agree with that. As a dad, you have discovered a kids' craft project or game that might have inadvertently offered a new way of looking at your work or open up an unexpected creative avenue. I have 3 kids. Our house is full of lots of things, plastic things. I wouldn't say that any one thing directed me towards a new creative avenue per se. Most recently, we did get our oldest son the Oculus, and that's been a really interesting thing to play with and how it merges the digital and physical worlds in a way that wasn't possible just a couple of years ago. We here at Mapos are really focused on this kind of convergence of the digital and the physical. So I'm very interested to see where that'll take us and to continue to play with my son's Oculus, which is kind of neat. Okay, we're getting down there. I think this is the last question, guys. How has the pandemic profoundly changed the aesthetics of buildings in which we live and work for the long term? Great way to wrap it up. I think a lot of what we're seeing now may go away, things that divide or separate people, plastic barriers and whatnot. I don't think those things are going to stick around. I think they are dehumanizing and generally destroy space. And along those lines, I think the thing that is here now that's going to stay is the appreciation of true space, of having room to breathe, of air movement and natural light. Those are things that are kind of, universal. And I think that we've developed a new appreciation for it during the pandemic. And anyone who studies cities and design and architecture knows that this has been an ongoing thing throughout the ages. And now we've kind of rediscovered it and are reappreciating it as designers and inhabitants of space. So I'm happy that has kind of reemerged, and we're going to try to do our best to kind of continue to push that agenda rather than barriers and walls between people. So that's all I have. My vessel is now empty. I hope you appreciated my answers and enjoyed them. And thanks for listening.